Starfield is a game that came out and disappointed most people because we all expected it to be the space exploration game where you could just take off from a planet and just fly straight into space and stuff like that without being plagued by cut screens. Um, we also expected it to be an open world explorer where every time you open a door you're not hit across the face with the loading screen and stuff like that. Obviously, the NPCs who have the death stare and don't really have any expressions, all the game breaking bugs that so many of my viewers are experiencing, all of these are things that are bad with the game. But there's a lot that is actually perfect about the game. One of those aspects is spaceship building. How you can customize your spaceship or build a new spaceship from scratch and just maybe have the ship of your dreams. Just fly across, killing all these pirates in the ship that you built, have that sense of satisfaction and stuff. But all these overly complicated customization options can leave a player overwhelmed, and the developers certainly don't help because, well, they don't really explain what each stuff does and how you're supposed to differentiate between all of that. That is where this video comes in. By the end of this video, I am hoping that you will have learned everything that is there about Starship building. And well, let's start off right now. There's about three classes of starships or spaceships in Starfield. Um, there's class A, B, and C. Class B and C can only be piloted by anyone who has a pilot skill at the rank 3 or 4 respectively. And the other thing that you might want to think about is the three companies that manufacture most of the components for these spaceships, the three top competitors at least. There's the Nova Galactic, which is at the cheap end of the manufacturers. There's the Stroud Eklund, which has more of a streamlined look, and there's Taiyo, which well kind of looks like old NASA punk mix type thing. So whichever aesthetic pleases you the most, that's the company you should use. And to actually start off being able to build a ship, you'll actually need a ship in your inventory that you can just delete and forget about. Don't delete any of the memorable ships like the Frontier or the ship that you get at the end of the what was that? Or the ship that you get at the end of the Ranger quest line. Yeah, that's one of the best ships in game. You get components that require starship design of level 4 or 3 on that. But yeah, like don't lose ships like that. That'll be dumb. Just go land on some remote planet, wait for somebody else to land on it, go hijack their ship, come back to a ship technician, go into the modify menu, register your ship, and just enter the ship builder and delete the entire ship. All right, diving into all the controls that you have to use. The W, A, S, and D will move the camera around the plane. R and F, R will raise the level at which you're viewing the plane. F will take you down. This is very important because in some instances you might want to change the position of some component on your ship, and you're not at the right if you're not at the right level, it won't quite align with it. So pressing R to go up if you need to, or go down by pressing F if you need to, will make sure you're at the right level to actually align that component with the rest of the ship. Then obviously we have G to add all of the stuff on to the ship. Then we have flight check, which will show all of the errors that are there. So right now we have no component of the ship, so that's showing us all the components that are necessary for the build. And yeah, you can also rename the ship here by pressing G and then pressing G again. I'm just going to name this prototype. And then confirm. That will just rename your ship. You can press escape now. Once you're done, yeah, and at the end of the video, we'll be assigning the weapons to the ship. So this is where you do W0. If you've gone with the default control setup, W0 will be your primary weapon that you activate with your left click. W1 will be your secondary weapon which you activate with your right click, and W2 will be the tertiary weapon which you activate by pressing G. And again, this is all by the default setup. If you've changed, then you might have to check your control setup and then come back here and assign accordingly. That's how you assign weapons. And yeah, that's about all the controls. The last few things, to undo any change you've done, you have to press left control and then Z, the same way you do in Word, and then Y to redo, the same way again you do in Word. And if you want to duplicate any component, you select that component and press Control G, and that will just duplicate that component, so you can put the same component on some other side of your ship instead of having to go to the menu, selecting it. It saves you some time like that. And that's it. That's all of the controls. Oh, and to zoom in and zoom out, you use your scroll wheel. Yeah, yeah, that's it. I promise. That's it. One thing you all need to know before we start building our ship is the difference between crew stations and crew capacity. So all weapons, all engines, and grav. Oh, sorry, not the grav drives. The reactors and all of these stuff have crew capacity as a metric on them. That means that the total of that number is the total number of crew that you can actually have on your ship. And what crew station actually is that that's just a station which your crew can use. It doesn't really hurt anyone even if you don't really have that, but like if you want to know where you can actually find your people, that's usually the best spot. So if you have about a 7 max crew capacity, it's suggested that you have at least 8 crew stations, so that each person will have their own station and they're not just roaming around everywhere on the ship. um Yeah, basically the crew capacity has to be lesser than the crew stations. Just make sure that is what is happening with your ship and you should be fine. Now let's jump right into the components that you put into your ship. I usually like to start with the cockpits. So just press G to add the components and go. Let's just go over to the cockpits. So there's three companies, like I said in the start. There's Nova, there's Stroud Eklund, and there's Tayo. These three are the major companies that will give you your cockpit, your habitats, your landing gear, and whatnot. All of it basically. So yeah, just use any of these that you think. So in cockpits, the only things you'll have to look for is the cargo space that they give you. Like this CP100 Viking will give me about 200 cargo space and 4 crew stations. These are the things you look for in any cockpit. So it might be the Nova one. This is the cheapest one you can get. And well, this has lesser crew stations and obviously lesser cargo. But yeah, you can choose whichever one you want depending on your needs. I usually like to go with the Stout Eklund ones because they have the highest crew stations. But if you don't really have the skills that are required to have more crew people, more crew on your ship, you can just get the Nova cockpit or the Tayo cockpit. These have the two people crew stations, not more than that. So you can just select whichever one you want, doesn't really matter too much. All right. The reason I asked you all to move on to habitats once you're done with cockpits is there's one very simple reason. Habitats have to be connected to the cockpit to be accessible, and like connecting them first to this will ensure that they are connected. Yeah, doesn't necessarily mean that all cockpits needs. All habitats need to be connected to all cockpits or stuff like that. You don't need that to happen for you. If you just connect one habitat and then connect all your other habitats to that habitat, that should give you access to the entire ship. So there shouldn't be too much problem there. So let's just go and check out all the types of habitats that you can get. Again, I'm going to build an entirely new ship at the end of the video to show you how to go about it step by step, so that you, if you just follow that procedure, you can build any ship that will work. So yeah. um all right, so there's 1 by 1 habs, there's 2 by 1 habitat, and there's a 3 by 1 habitat. So the difference between them is actually very evident. 1 by 1s are basically placeholders. They don't really serve any purpose. But if you need space between habitats and stuff, you can use this. Or you can use this as a junction to connect all your habitats and stuff like that. So that's all on you basically. However you want to use this. This is more towards the design of the ship than any function. They don't serve any function at all. Then come the 2 by 1s. These are the ones that are the most functioning habitats that you could ever have. The all-in-one berths will give you passenger slots. So you might think you don't really need passenger slots, but imagine there's a quest where that quest needs someone to follow you who isn't your crew. That is where the issue is going to show up. If you don't have any passenger slots on your ship, he's not going to board your ship. It's that simple. So this is one of the most important things to have on your ship, and I would say it's a must to have on your ship. Um, Other than that, we have the armory, which will hold all your weapons. Again, all companies have the same types of 2 by 1s. There's no difference there, so don't worry about having to check each and every one of them. It's more of on the aesthetics end. So if you want this looking, or something that looks like this, that's when you change companies, or else just it's basically the same thing throughout. So yeah, the armory holds all your weapons. It's the part of your ship that has all of these weapon racks where you can put your weapons in. But the one bad thing about this is, once you put your weapons on your weapon racks, they won't count as being in your ship cargo. So if you want to go and sell stuff uh, to someone, and if you're not carrying that weapon but it's in your weapon rack, it won't show even in your ship inventory. So that's kind of an issue. I hope they fix it soon, but yeah, that is one problem you might face with the armory. I frankly it's believe it's just more for that visual appeal, or if you want to save some cargo space on your ship, this is very useful for that as well. um, the next one are captain's quarters. These are the place where you have your own space, where you can go and catch some shut eye, maybe just sit at your table and do absolutely nothing and just wait for time to pass, or stuff like that. Yeah, and this is also very important for you, because sleeping and waking up could give you somewhere between 10 to 15% of XP boost. The 10% is when you just sleep there and wake up. 15 comes in when you have a commitment to someone. Like, my character is committed to Andrea. So every time I go and sleep in a bed, she cracks this cheesy line about having sex with me, even though you can't actually see the two characters having sex and stuff. It's actually kind of funny. But yeah, if you have a committed partner and stuff in the game, you get that extra 5% XP boost. So this is also one of the few things that I absolutely must include in my ships. Again, depending on your preference, you might want to, you might not want to. That's all on you. Select accordingly. Then we have the computer core, which is again serves no purpose other than just being a crew station. It has all those computers, and yeah, just getting the crew person onto your ship, and yeah, there'll be a station for that person there basically. No other function. It just has, it looks a little bit cool because it has a lot of computers and stuff, but nothing else. Control station. This is actually the best component, is actually the best habitat that I believe should everyone should have on their ship. And I usually just connect this right to the cockpit, so that all my crew stations are right behind my cockpit. It's like that. And it is really really good, because it gives you 4 additional crew stations on your ship. Frankly, your computer rooms and stuff are useless once you have this in your ship. Infirmary again is basically, if you have a ship doctor and stuff, you can put this in, because they'll keep refilling your med packs and stuff into a crate. You know those medical green colored crates that are lying around everywhere that have med packs and stuff. Yeah, they'll keep refilling this. Then you have the living quarters, which again are kind of like the all-in-one berths, but these are living quarters for your crew, which can be doubled as passenger slots as well. So yeah, doesn't matter which you get, both of them serve the same function. Science lab, on the other hand, has one big advantage, that is having the research table in them, and also the passenger slots. I usually select this one because I get the passenger slots and I get the research table. The research table where you go and research all the stuff you want to craft. That table, yeah, that's there in the science lab. And then at the end, again, the workshop, same function, but it has all four types of tables you might need: the cooking table, the industrial work table, the spacesuit upgrade table or mod table, and the weapons mod table. All of these are present in this place. That's all of the 2x1 habs. Next, we have the 3x1 habs. Again, the all-in-one serve the same purpose. And the engineering bay is basically the alternative if you want, if you already have too many passenger slots but want more crew stations. Select this instead of the all-in-one. That's basically it. There's not too much advantage to actually having any of this. So that's about it. All right. Now we're gonna do ship reactors. These are arguably the most important components on your reactor, but the main things you'll have to look for is the power generated, the class which you're selecting, because that is very important. Unless you have piloting rank 3 or 4, as I've said in the start of the video, you can't actually pilot anything that's class B or C. And if you put in the class B or C reactor in there, your ship is not going to go anywhere. It's not even going to pass the flight test. So that's that. All right. So so this one has 16 power generation, the best without any starship design. The best reactor you can get is this one, the 360T Stellarator reactor. This has about 20 power generation, which is not much better than most ships have, which is 18. But yeah, like this is the best you can get without any starship design ranks. Obviously, with them and with pilot ranks, you can just go mad in this customizer. I mean, there's quite a few options. Yeah, but this is the best one you can get without any of those skills. All right. Next up, we have shields. Shields are a bit complicated. So, early game when you don't really have too much skills to actually handle all shields, the best shield would have to be the Bastel S81 shield generator because it has a max power of 4 and about 390 max health. The reason that this is better than, let's say, the 30S protector shield generator is for one and one reason only: the max power. This has 5 but only 420 max health, while the Bastel S81 has 4 max power and 390 max health. So that 1 point power that you can actually allocate into some other system in your ship could be very precious, especially in the start of the game when you only have about 20 max power without having any of the skills that are necessary to build a ship. So just even that one maybe being allocated to the engines, or maybe just that one as a, what do you say, as a fail safe into grav drive systems and stuff, that would actually have a better impact than anything that this might do. Now we're going to talk about the structural components that you might implement into your ship. These include the components that you might want to add to give your ship more refined look. Just make it look like it's an actual fighter jet instead of a bulky, what do you say, bulky blocks of iron that's just cruising around space. So let's just dive right into it. There's quite a few in structural. There's the weapon mounts, both the equipment plate and the horizon weapon mount are weapon mounts. One is the horizontal mount and one is the normal mount. So the horizontal mount will allow you to add two weapons, while this will only allow you to add one. Then there's the portholes, which give your habs a nice feeling that they're actually in outer space. You can go into your habitat, just put one of these on your habitat, and then look out directly into space. These are just depending on these are named depending on the side that they'd be in. So the porthole 4 would be to the front. You select that, press Z, it will become porthole aft, which will be in the back. The same thing with port. You select that and press Z, it will go to starboard. Same thing with top. You select that and press Z, it will go to bottom. And you can place the portholes in any direction that you want to. Then we have all of these cosmetics, you could call them, I guess, for the ship. um, yeah. Uh, yeah. Yeah, these all just are used to give the ship more a streamlined look and stuff. And then come in the engine bracers and mount. These are used to basically lengthen where you put the engines in. This is the mount is usually put on the back of a ship. So if you don't want the engines too close to the ship, you put this and then put the engines at the back. So that, you get that nice long look for your ship. And then you have these which can act as wings, and then your ship just you like connect this to one end of your ship, and then the other end goes into the engine. That's how that works, and everything else is again just for aesthetics there. The one thing you might want to think about using is the where's the- yeah, the mid bracers in any company. Again, these actually act as your wing elongators, I guess you could say. These have connection points everywhere except the bottom, and they are very useful. You can just extend your wings if you want to by using this. Maybe you just want more slots where you can put in more stuff like landing gear and whatnot. You can use these for that as well. Everything else is basically just cosmetics. All of these all of these noses and stuff have these connection points on top that are used for weapon mounting, but other than that, everything else is basically just there for a cosmetic appeal. They don't really have too much use. All right, now we're going to look for all the weapons, and I'm going to tell you what each of them does. So we have the cannons, which are the ballistic weapons, which basically fire live bullets instead of laser bullets and stuff. Auto cannons are the rapid fire ones, and your normal cannons are single shot. Single shots deal more damage, while rapid fire can shoot continuously. The main thing you'll have to look for in any weapon is the class that weapon is of. So if you're building in class A ship, that basically means you have class A reactor. You'll only be able to use class A weapons with that. The other thing you'll have to look for is the fire rate. Obviously, the normal ones have lesser fire rate, but if you go for the rapid fire ones, those will have like almost double that fire rate. The other things you'll have to look for are the hull damage, the shield damage, obviously, and and obviously also the max power. Max power is a very complicated one because each weapon that you put in will add to this. So, for example, if you put in 3 cannons, that'll mean 9 max power. It's gonna be like that basically. Um, and then you have the crew capacity. This again, like I explained at the start, is gonna matter a lot. So you might wanna pack how many ever weapons you can onto a ship, because that'll increase the number of crew you can have on your ship. And next up, we have suppressors. These are the weapons that deal EM damage. They'll basically disable any component that they've done enough damage to. Um, Again, in this, you might want to look at the class, the crew capacity. Usually, the max power is 3 for class A weapons. So, yeah, that's basically usually about it. This one again has a max power of 6, but you'll also need a star design rank 1. So I'm not going to cover any of that. I'm just going to cover all the basic components. And once you build a basic ship, like just try that once, and go for the other ranks later after that. So yeah, this deals about electromagnetic damage. That's the only component you'll have to look for. It doesn't. These weapons don't really deal any hull and shield damage, so they're going to be your tertiary weapons where you only use them to disable some functions. Then we have the laser weapon. These are like the ballistic ones. The normal ones are the normal lasers are single shot, which deal more damage. The pulse lasers are rapid fire, which deal lesser damage but shoot continuously. In this, you'll obviously be looking for the crew capacity, the class, and the shield and hull damage. So the lasers deal more shield damage, while the other things deal more hull damage. But there are a few options which will let you deal more and more damage. Obviously, like this one, the 40 Reza 45 gigahertz one, which is made by Shinigami. Apparently, the dead god made them, but yeah, whatever. Uh, So yeah, these deal 16 shield damage. All right. Then we have the missile launchers. These usually have same damage across the board. Like they deal same amount of hull damage and the shield damage. So yeah, in this you'll want to look for the class, the range, the fire rate, which is one of the most important components in this. So I'm just going to take a few examples here to explain. So this one has about 47 hull damage and 47 shield damage, but only has a fire rate of 1. So let's just go down here. This Vanguard missile launcher has 33 and 30 hull and shield damage, but it has a fire rate of 1.5. So that means you'll be able to fire it about 50% faster than the before one. So if you look at it that way, that means you're in the same amount of time you're dealing about 45 shield damage and about 46.5 hull damage. So they're basically almost the same. So the next factor you'll have to look for, if that happens to be the same, will be the max power. So the more power you can put into this, the more damage you'll deal, obviously. So yeah, just look into that, look at the max power and decide whichever you want to do. That's about it. And crew capacity for all of the weapons will be 0.5, so there's nothing you can actually change about that. And then we have the electron beam, which is basically, as the name suggests, it's an electron beam. Instead of a single shot, it'll fire a beam at the enemy. And auto electron beams are the ones that can auto fire, basically. That's about it. And there's quite a few options in that. And in class B, we have a new weapon that's introduced, that is railgun. So these are exactly like the name suggests. As you know, railguns are the guns that can keep on shooting and shooting and shooting. They don't really run out of energy that easily. They're kind of like ballistics, but the fire rate is so much higher, and yeah, they're really really strong, and they deal a lot of damage, a lot of damage. So yeah, that. And obviously RF again here suggests that it's rapid fire, and railgun here suggests that it's single shot. So you might want to check all of that. And rapid railgun is also going to be in the name if it's a continuous firing gun. Then again, it's cannons, suppressors, cannons, pulse lasers, missiles, blah blah blah. Neutron beam is the same as electron beam, just probably deals more damage. Railguns again. Then we have the gauss guns. These are uh, well, so these are exclusive to class C, and they primarily deal hull damage. So if you're going to use a gauss gun at any point in the game, make sure you have one other weapon like a laser weapon or an electron beam or something like that, or something or the other like that, that deals enough shield damage, so that you have something that can be used on against shield, and then something that has enough power left to be used against hull right away. So that's the only situation you'll use this in, basically. Again, suppressors, pulse lasers, normal lasers. Yeah, it's more of the same again. It's just like you have to look at the power they have, the damage they deal, the range they have, and all of that, basically. But yeah, these are all the options you have in weapons. Now let's talk about cargo. Cargo is kind of complicated because you'll have to consider aesthetics, the mass of the cargo hold, and the cargo that they can actually hold. So, for example, look at this one. Oh wait, yeah, okay, look at this one. It doesn't really need anything from you. No skills required to build it. So the main thing you'll have to look at here is the mass to cargo ratio. So, for example, there's 300 cargo and 64 mass that this cargo hold has. This one has 225, so that's basically 75% of 102, right? But if you look at the mass isn't exactly 75%, it's somewhere around 70 maybe. So that actually kind of complicates things there. So that means this one, while it has lesser mass, if you like put in three of these, should be equal to around two of these for lesser mass or something. It's kind of like that. So you put in three of these, that'll equal to two of these is mass, but you'll get more cargo space with these, about 75 more maybe cargo space. So you'll have to look at it like that. And sometimes, actually, the more further you get into shipbuilding and stuff, aesthetics are what matter more than anything else. So yeah, stuff like this, if you want a curved cargo to go in with the aesthetic of the ship, or something like this if you don't want a rounded out feeling but you want a more geometric feel to it, or something like this, because and this only goes on the bottom of the ship. So yeah, there's multiple types of this again, and you'll also need separate starship design ranks. But that's about it basically, like. And this is basically like cargo haul style. If you're like someone who wants to get that cargo hauler aesthetic, that's when you use these. But yeah, other than these three things, you don't really have to look at anything else. You only have to look at the cargo space to mass ratio and then the aesthetics. That's about it. Then we have dockers. Dockers are kind of like the most useless ones. It's only the aesthetics that you have to look at. Everything else is more or less the same. If you want your docker to be on the side, you select this one. If you want it to be on the top, you select these three. Top or bottom, you select these three. So whichever your preferences, doesn't matter. The only thing you'll have to make sure you do in a docker is what do you say attach them to a habitat module instead of your cockpit, because if you do it, install it to your cockpit, it's kind of the same, not really that different, but the aesthetics are ruined. So I usually just add it to a hab somewhere, and then yeah, you're done. You can add it anywhere in your ship, doesn't really matter which habitat you actually add it to. Just make sure isn't any other habitat right on this thing's level or above. This has to be at the top or at the extreme bottom. There's no middle ground in this. Don't just add it somewhere in the middle and then put on a habitat on a level above that habitat. It won't work. It'll give you an error saying your dock is not the highest point or lowest point in your ship. Next up, we have engines, and there's quite a few options in engines actually. Um, there's the Class A engines, that's the Ares, the SA, the Slayton Aerospace, the SA engines basically, and then there's the White Dwarf engines. So the main things that you'll be looking for in these engines is obviously the class. The class always has to be the same class as the reactor. You will also be looking for the engine thrust, the maneuvering thrust, and obviously the mass again here. Mass plays a huge role just like in cargo here, because the more mass your ship has, the less mobility it has, and the more landing gears that it'll need as well. So yeah, it's all a delicate balance. You'll understand it more when we start building the ship, but for now, just I'm just going to explain the basic components of it all. So each engine has about a 0.25 crew capacity. So I usually prefer having at least four engines, sometimes maybe more depending on the needs of the ship and all. But yeah, having these is really helpful too. And there's quite a few customization options, like quite a few shapes and sizes of this thing. Like this one that is there in the frontier, you probably recognize it from there. This will directly attach to the side, and then yeah, it looks fine, I guess. But the high tech ones are really, really amazing. Like let's go to class C. Like look at the size of that thing. Look at the thrust it has. I mean, that is some crazy stuff. That is amazing, actually. I love it. Uh, yeah, look at this one. They're huge. I mean, you could get something compact like this, but Class C only has these options. Like, these are the only options you have. They're all huge, they're bulky. That's how Class C ships are supposed to be made. You can obviously make smaller, more compact Class C ships, but that's basically wasting all the capacity that Class C actually gives you. I usually like to create destroyer level ships on this. All right. Next up, we have fuel tanks. Let's just dive right in. Okay, so there's multiple types of fuel tanks. They're divided in a few categories. Some that can, be put on the top of the ship or the bottom of the ship. Some that can be put on the front of the ship or the back of the ship, and some that can only be put on the sides of the ship. That's basically it. And obviously, the more defining factor of it all is how much jump fuel they can actually hold. So these ones are the highest you can go without actually going into starship design rank 1. Everything else needs rank 1 or rank 2. These are the top ones that do not top and bottom ones that do not require any starship design rank, and these are the port and starboard ones that do not require any starship design ranks. That's about it. So just select whichever you think you'll need depending on the place where you're putting it, the capacity that you need, etc., etc., and then you should be fine. Then we have the landing gear. There's quite a few types of this actually. There's the beast legs, as I like to call them, which you can't really see here because this ship technician apparently does not have those. But yeah, like this can act as the proxy for that. So there's two types of landing gears. Ones that are long. So these ones you can put on the side of your wings or stuff like that, and they'll reach the bottom. And the other ones are the normal landing gears that are shorter. As you can see here, while they are at the same height, this gets cut off at half. So depending on where you're putting these, you'll have to decide whether that place can actually make sure that the landing gear is reaching the bottom or not. Next up, we have the landing bay. These are just like the landing gears, they always have to reach the bottom. I'm just gonna show you all the options that you'll have for the base. So just imagine that this is the bay that you're using, right? So if it doesn't touch the ground, that green part that's there will turn red and says that it's either not the bottommost point of your ship, or it'll just show up in the error saying that yeah, your landing bay is not aligned with the base of the ship and stuff. So you'll have to align it accordingly. So for imagine if this is the landing bay that I'm using, and I have a landing gear as well. So I'm just going to change this actually to attach. Yeah, so imagine this is your landing bay, right? And then you attach, or you have some landing gears with you. If this is the one that you're using, that should fit perfectly alongside this. But if it's anything that's longer than this, the kind that I've showed you just before, that go with the wings and stuff, those are longer than this. So they would go below this thing's lowest point, which would mean that your landing bay is not exactly reaching the ground, making it impossible for it to even exist as a component in your ship. That'll obviously again show up as an error saying that your landing bay is not reaching the ground, or it's too below the lowest point on the ship on of the landing bay or something like that. And when that happens, that thing that's there turns red. Next up, we have the grav drives. So there's quite a few of these. The main issue about selecting all of these is thinking about the grav jump thrust. So the higher the thrust value is, the more the weight of your the mass of your ship can be. um, and obviously the class and the max power. If you go down to this class C grav drives, these have some with grav jump thrust of 50, up to 50. In class B we have up to maybe 30. Yeah, up to 30. And all of these basically signifies that these things can handle more mass while still maintaining their jump range. About of all of these grav drives, at the bare minimum usually have 30 light years. But by the time you're done building your ship and stuff, all of the mass of all of the components is going to weigh this down and bring down your jump range to much lower actually. In the ship that I am building, I think it'll be about 27 light years from 30, because of all the components that I'm going to be putting onto that ship. So obviously, the lower the mass, the more the grav jump range will be. That's basically it. You might just want to create a separate ship that has the lowest mass and just use that to travel to systems that are over the, I mean, that are up to 30 light years, and then create another one to to be your main fighting ship, where you don't have to actually care about the jump range of your ship and stuff. All right, now to actually build our ship, the first thing we're going to introduce into the field is the cockpit. So let's just hover over to the cockpit section. I like using the Star Declan one because it has more streamlined look, and the cockpit itself is longer, so gives that huge cockpit feel when you're inside it, and also helps with the aesthetics. You'll see why in the end of the video. So just introduce the cockpit first. So next thing you want to do is attach the habitats to this. So whichever point you want to attach, doesn't matter this point or this one or this one. Just make sure you're hovering over that point when you press G to add the habitats. Then just add whichever habitat you want, whichever company you want. But the one problem with the Nova habitats is that you can just add one. I'm going to show you that right now. So I added this one. If I want to add another one, I'll have to go for the Stroud or the Thayo uh, habitats. So just make sure you use something that actually works and you can have multiple of. I'm going to choose the Stroud Eklund one. They all cost the same, so it doesn't really matter which you use. I usually like connecting the control station because it has all those crew stations, and yeah, it's nice. It has more natural feel to it. Then I add the captain quarters on top of this. I'm just gonna open captain quarters. Then to the sides, I add one all-in-one berth because this has the passenger slots, and those are important because you might wanna travel with some NPC you've met on a quest who's following you and stuff, and they won't be able to board your ship since they're not part of your crew unless you have a passenger slot on your ship. So having these is almost a must. So I'm just gonna add that and put that there. And then we're gonna add the workshop. This has all the 4 tables you'll need: the pharmaceutical table, the industrial work table, and both the weapon and space mod tables in this. So any upgrades and stuff you want to make, or if you want to create some components for your outpost and whatnot, having this helps a lot. So I'm going to put that there. And once you're done with this, we're going to add the reactor. Reactors. So there's quite a few options in here. There's the tokamak and there's the stellarator. I usually prefer the stellarator over the tokamak because it gives me more power generated and more hull when compared to the tokamak, which only has 390 hull and 18 power generated. So yeah, just go with the 360T stellarator. And then we're gonna add the grav drive. So there's two options that you can add without any starship design rank. It's the R3000 or the Helios 300. So I usually select the R3000 because it gives you more mounting options on all sides. So I usually select that, but you can depending on what aesthetic you're going for, or if you even want to attach something to the grab drive or not, you can decide whichever one you want to. I'm just going to go with the R3000 Alpha. So once we're done with that, the next things we're going to add is the cargo. So I'm gonna add cargo in a few weird places, but they'll make sense once the ship is done. So I'm gonna add the cargo here. So without any starship design ranks, we have three cargo, so we can use. These two are more in line with the ship design we're doing today, and then there's one that can act as like a act as the cargo hold for any cargo freights you might be trying to make, if that's the aesthetic you're going for. Otherwise, just use one of these two. I'm going to go with the bigger one, obviously. um, put one on both sides, and then I'm going to put one here and one here. That should do it. Once we're done with that, we're going to do engines. So the relationship between cargo and engines is in the max mass of the ship. So if you put in too much cargo, there might not be enough engines to run it, and if you put in too many engines, there the reactor itself might not be able to handle them. So you need to find that right balance. Usually I would ask you to go with the engines first and then the cargo, but since we don't actually know how much engines we would need depending on our cargo needs, we might have to increase the engines later on. So I'm asking you to go with this, because you can just go in here, check if your ship can even take off, which it can, but it still has low mobility. So once you confirm this, that means that you need more engines for this to actually move at high mobility, which is about 75. So then you might realize that you might want to add more engines, which I am going to do now. I'm gonna add the White Dwarf 2010 on both sides. Hopefully this will give it enough thrust. There you go. Now if we check our errors again, yep, there is nothing that is telling us that there's low mobility, and our mobility is at 97 right now. But the ship isn't done, it's bound to go down, so we'll check on it later again. Once we're done with the cargo, the engines, and everything, we're gonna go to the landing bay, which we're gonna add somewhere close to the cockpit, preferably to the habitat right next to it. So I'm gonna press G, I'm gonna go for the base. I usually use the Nova Galactic one. It's easier to use, it's streamlined basically. I just like it better this way. Then we're going to do the landing gears. So the one thing you always have to check for is making sure that the landing gears are on the same level as your landing bay. So I'm just going to add the bottom, I'm just going to add the gears at the bottom here. I'm going to go with the Shroud Eklund one because they'll go with the aesthetic. um, so we press Z to flip it, and then Control G to duplicate it. Put one more here. Again, Control G to duplicate it. Press Z, and Control G to duplicate it, and place one more here. That should be enough landing gears. Once you're done with all of that, if you think you've missed the step anywhere, just press C. It'll show you what you're missing, except for cargo. Cargo is something that you'll have to do on your own. It won't show up here. But everything else that's missing, for example, we haven't put in the docker, we haven't put in any fuel, any of the weapons, or the shield. So those are the things that are missing from our thing. So I'm just going to start off with the docker. I'm going to do this, go to docker, and dockers don't really matter unless you want to connect something to the docker again. That is the only time when you might want to add the Nova Galactic docker, because you can add something to this. Maybe you want to add cargo or something or the other to the stuff, so you can use that then. Other than that, I just ask you to use the smallest docker you can, because it's more aesthetically pleasing that way. um then we've got the shields, and there's quite a few options. Like I've already explained in the shield category, all you need to do is check whether, especially when you have lower power, just make sure your power to shield health ratio is right on. So this one has 5 power and 420 shield, and this one has 390 shield and 4 power. I would select this because that single point can be put towards some other system, and I would rather have that than not have it. So I'm just going to put that there. Since we're done with all of that, the only thing that's left now is to put in the fuel tanks and the weapons. So now again, like I've said before in the video, just put in the fuel tanks. The ones at the back are the ones that have the most capacity, and we have quite a few space, I mean a lot of space here or here and here to put all of these tanks in. So you can get up to 420, maybe even more than that if you need, but 420 is the most you'll ever need. So yeah, I'm just gonna put those in, that there, control G, and this one here. All right, so that's given us 420 grav jump fuel. Now all that's left is putting in the structurals to give this a more streamlined look, and obviously the weapons. So we're gonna start off with the structurals first. Let's just go to the structurals. So to give it that ship feel, I'm gonna go with the shroud cap A, or you can go with the shroud cap A port aft if you want it to be facing backwards, but I need it to be facing up front, so I'm just going to do this. Then I'm going to press Z to align it properly, then control G, bring it over here, Z, and then we're done. So that's the wings part that's over. The next part that we want to do is here. I'm going to press G. I'm going to go with the Nova cowling. For this, there's again quite a few options that you can try out inside this itself. They're customizable, so whatever you think might look better for you, but I like this because it kind of connects to the front of the cockpit like that, and it gives that a more continuous feeling than it yeah, it just gives it that continuous feeling. And control G, I'm going to bring it here, press Z, and then place. So now that we're done with that, the only area that's left is this one. So we're gonna add something there. You can add a Nova cowling here or a shroud braking engine. I like this because it covers up every part of the hab that was showing out here. But you can select whatever you think is good. The next and the last thing to do is mount all the weapons. So there's about 14 mounting points. There's 2 here, 2 here, 2 here, that's 6, and 2 more here, that's 8. Then we have 2 here, 2 here, 1 here, and 1 here. Obviously, if you need more weapon mounting points at any other point in your ship, like maybe you want to mount one here, or maybe you want to mount one here, there's more. You can just go to the structurals part of it, put in the equipment plate if it's something that's on the top or bottom, or if it's something that's on the side. Sorry, I'm just gonna remove this for now. So if it's something just on the side, you can put in the horizontal weapon mount and then just put all of your weapons on these. But since we already have 14, I don't think you'll actually need them. Now we're gonna start adding the weapons. The first things that we are gonna add would have to be the pulse lasers. These are my favorite rapid fire weapons. I'm gonna add about 4 of these. There we go. Then at the bottom in the middle, I'm gonna add the suppressors. Again, these are the most cost inducing items in the shipbuilding process, and you might want to decide depending on that. And then we have the missile launchers. I'm gonna put in 4 of those as well. Again, they're really expensive, all of these weapons. Those are what are gonna take up most of your budget out of you. So just make sure all the other components are the bare minimums that you need, and there isn't too much of it out there. And then we're gonna add the last missile launcher, and that's it. We're done with the ship. There you go. And not just that, we can also now color it. So just press Control double click. The red means the entire ship is selected. press J, which will bring you to the colors. I usually like to go with the black, green, and brownish shade when I do this. Keep that saturation low so that it gets more of that matte finished. If you increase the saturation, it just goes more into the metallic finish than the matte one. So yeah, depending on your preference again, obviously. But that's usually how I color my ships. And then color 3 could be an orangish shade of brown, something like this that offers nice contrast to the ship. And then press enter, and yeah, let's assign the weapons now. So I usually so the weapon 0 or W0 is the left click on your mouse. I usually like assigning the rapid fire weapons there. You can do whatever you want to. Um, the missile launcher is going to be on my right click, which is W1. And then the tertiary weapon is going to be my suppressor, which, if you haven't changed any of your default keybinders, should be G. And that's it. You can flight check now, go to messages. If it shows all systems nominal, that means there are no issues. Your ship is going to be a beast. It's going to destroy everybody because you now have 188 missiles, missile attack, 2 EM weapons that can disable any of your enemy ship systems, and four laser pulse laser cannons that can just rain fire on your enemies. Hope you enjoyed your video and that it was actually entertaining enough for you to stay till this point in the video. If you did enjoy, please hit that subscribe button. It would go a long way towards supporting the channel. We have over 100 superheroes who've actually taken the leap and have hit that subscribe button. If any of you are watching this video, I am so thankful and grateful for you guys. You guys, whenever you hit that sub button, make my day. And yeah, this was my first guide video, so please do leave all of those comments that will give me the breakdown on how I actually did.